We had our niceties way earlier in the morning.
Morning, Jolly Twine. How are you?
You tell them this Johnny come lately. They think
yes, you come late and you think you have just started.
Okay, Jaja Muzungu, can you welcome Dr. Kasenen in the house?
Over to the broadcasting house.
No, Mark, those are not fair things.
2 minutes.
We have 4 minutes to go. See.
There's a lot,
but
there's a lot of conflict around here.
Already.
Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
But
Good morning.
Peter, I wanted to come for Salon lessons, but I see Sam is failing his exams.
Good morning.
We need to review.
Yes,
Good morning, you did
Good morning.
I'm not having Yedida's voice, Bananga. Will the fellow should be okay without Yedida's voice?
Yedida has been talking. It is you.
Peter, you are fine?
I'm very well. Now they can take us to broadcasting house.
Dr. Kasenen, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Kayaunama.
Yahunama.
Dr. Kasenen, you are obliged to respond to the sound.
Abiena kaguza okajegrankae ejo salam.
Enyumba ebadde kutta omuliro. Peter gwolese sanite back to the house. Obona aganti atutwala mu broadcasting house.
No, it was out of anger because whenever I talk or you say what I'm talking is shouldn't be in the Kimeza. The alternative was to shut down the house.
Musana.
Good morning, Pipi Sam Musana.
Good morning, everybody. I have just joined in. You know what? Normally I have the morning devotion from our church, St. Luke's Church, from 6 to 7.
Welcome.
We prayed for all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the prayer, Sam.
Yes.
Welcome, Sam.
And David, thanks for visiting us. I don't know where Jaja Muzungu was.
Rotary and Elvis, you say if we know.
Okay, let us welcome lawyer Hoji Semakulas. We go to the broadcasting house. 1 minute. Over now to broadcasting house.
Before Master greets us, there's still a minute. Then, good morning, Master Kenobisho.
Good morning, Rotarian Peter and everyone. A blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessed day to you too.
Peter,
good morning, God sing. Before we go to the broadcasting house.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, a very good morning to you, friends. As usual, it is a joy to have each and every single one of you come to join us at daybreak. Allow me to draw your attention to the commencement of our fellowship this morning by inviting our Sergeant at Arms to place us in the safe hands of the blueberries that will be serving us this month in a peaceful way, given it is a month of peace and conflict resolution. I take the moment to welcome each and every single one of you that has joined us this morning, all our district and Rotary leaders. It is always a great joy. Our international partners, what a joy it is to have you. Thank you very, very, very much. And to you, my comrades, the Changemaker presidents, led by our own POP, thank you very, very, very much for always being with Daybreak. So Sergeant Stephen, I turn this to you to start us off.
Thank you, President. Good morning, fellow Rotarians, Rotaractors, and friends of Rotary. Our lineup is as follows. For the grace, Rotarian Yedida Nyakato will take us through. For the loyal toast, Rotarian Julius Namara. For the 4 West test, Rotarian Irene Katende. For the object of Rotary, Rotarian Dr. Grace Bikumbi. Then we'll have Rotary information, introduction of the guest by Honorable CP Dr. Robert Rutaji, introduction by PE Edward Mugerwa, vote of thanks by Rotarian Ruth Tushave, statistics by myself, Stephen Wakasenza, and the final toast by PN Dorothy Achan. Without any further ado, Rotarian Yedida, can you take us through the grace?
Much obliged, Rotarian Stephen. Once again, good morning, Rotarians, Rotaractors, and friends on call. Let's humble ourselves for the grace. Lord, we want to thank you for this month of peace and conflict resolution. We thank you for what we have so far received and what we are yet to receive. But above all, Lord, keep us mindful of the needs of others. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Rotarian Julius, kindly take us away with the royal toast.
Good morning, Rotarians, Rotaractors, and friends on call. For the wonderful fellowship we are about to have, I propose a toast to Rotary World International.
We propose a toast to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda.
To His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda.
Thank you very much. Irene, kindly guide us through the four-way test.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Good morning, friends on this call. May we cite the four-way test together. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Over to you, President.
Thank you very much, Rotarian Irene Katende. Dr. Grace Bikumbi, kindly guide us through the object of Rotary. In his absence, I will request none other than Rotarian Faith Tushabe to kindly turn on your screen and guide us through the object of Rotary.
If Faith is not available, I can take you through the object of Rotary. The object of Rotary is to encourage and foster the ideal of service as a basis of worth enterprise, and in particular to encourage and foster first the development of acquaintance as an opportunity.
I can help you there as an opportunity for service. Second, high ethical standards in business and professionals. The recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. And third, the application of the ideal of service in each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life. And fourth, the advancement of international understanding goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship of business and professional persons united in the ideal of service. Thank you, Rotarians.
Thank you very much, PHF Patience Musime, and sorry to you, Rotarian Works. Your network has denied you an opportunity for service. Sorry about that, and we know that, as Patience says, you will be back. Friends, information is power. So it is right about now that I request that you allow me welcome our comrades and colleagues on call this morning that would like to share with us vital Rotary information. So if you have Rotary information, I'm kind of requesting that you raise your hand. Should you wish to do it the Chichiga way, it is still very okay. You can unmute and go for it straight away. Anybody with Rotary information? Yes, thank you very much. And I welcome you, PE Marion, to share with us your Rotary information, please.
Thank you, President Frederick. Good morning, everyone on call. President, this is a kind reminder about this weekend or Saturday, where there's going to be the third part and graduation for undergrad. And this class always happens to be very full because there are those Rotarians that missed part 3 of the course, and they only did part 1 and part 2. So those that missed part 3, apart from the current students, they're encouraged to sign up and finish the course, the undergraduate course, before they get to graduate class. So they're encouraged to. Today is Thursday, and it's the deadline, because it's easier for us to plan if people clear early. So it's a reminder that by end of today, we shall not be taking any payments or any funds, because we shall be doing final bookings. That is, and it's going to be at Protea. It's at 100, and this is the Rotary Leadership Institute, where we're having the 19th intake. So, President, encourage your members that haven't done third part to come on. I just saw a question saying, when is the next intake? The next intake shall kick off hopefully end of March, and then we rest and go for DCA, and then we come back and resume. Over to you, President.
Thank you very much, PE Marion. Friends, I will tell you, I am a graduate of the Rotary Leadership Institute. If you do not want your Rotary life ever to be the same again, I highly recommend that you should not only start, but go ahead and complete the classes and the sessions of the Rotary Leadership Institute. Marion happens to be my teacher, so thank you very much for sharing with us this vital information. Allow me to welcome POP Kate to share with us Rotary information.
Thank you very much, President. I'm on the road, so I'll be very brief. I'm not sure about the network. It's a reminder to all the clubs that we will soon resume the COVID-19 second round vaccinations, and that this will be coordinated by the Rotary Family Health Day Committee. Kindly, presidents online, mobilize the clubs accordingly and reach out to your district health officers for support. Thank you, President.
Thank you very much. President of Presidents, Kate, your presidential network is very clear, so don't you worry, it is well. Thank you very much for the information. Friends, I think this builds on from our promise and commitment to give our second and final dose. Owing to the fact that we gave our first doses, we need to complete this. So the clubs that participated, there is the guidance. And thank you very much. Any more Rotary information, friends? Okay, I will now request that should you have any further or any more Rotary information, I would kindly request that you kindly channel it through the chat section, and we'll gladly be able to receive it and take the due action that it calls for. So right about now, I have the privilege and opportunity to invite the first PHF in Uganda, to invite the first Rotary International Fellow, to invite the first honorary member of the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak, to also invite the first president of the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak. This is honorary member Dr. Robert Rutaji. If you can kindly unmute your microphone and unveil to us our guest speaker this morning. Over to you.
Good morning, Changemaker President Fred. And good morning, all Rotarians attending today. And good morning, Professor Venansia Sibadiamreva. Indeed, it is a great pleasure. Can you hear me, President?
You are loud and clear. Please go right ahead.
Wonderful, wonderful. It is my greatest privilege and honor, fellow Rotarians and all guests present, to introduce to you Bwaria Venansius. Professor Venansius Sibadiamreva is a professor of computer science. He served as Vice Chancellor of Makerere University between 2009 and 2012, and is a former presidential candidate of Uganda 2016. He is a proprietor and founder of Uganda Technology and Management University, UTAM. For starters, UTAM means honey, sweet. And I can assure you, you'll find his presentation very sweetly. He also serves as the Chancellor of Ibanda University. He is an international consultant in the area of ICT. Actually, he's the one who discovered ICT as far as Uganda, real ICT as far as Uganda is concerned. He's the one who started it. He is an international consultant in the area of ICT, science, technology, and innovation, higher education planning, management and governance, policy and strategy, private sector development, and trade and investment, among others. He is Charter President. You did, yes, Mr. President, that is our guest. In the interest of time, I cannot go on, because if I was to exhaust Professor Venansius Sibadiamreva's CV, all the time available for the Fellowship of Daybreak would be exhausted and he would be disappointed. That is your guest speaker, Mr. President. I give you Professor Venansius Sibadiamreva today. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Charter President, Professor Venansius Sibadiamreva. It is indeed an honor to have you, and you're very welcome. Allow me to hand over this audience to you for the next 30 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you very much. For purposes of ensuring that the Zoom link remains okay, let me just speak without putting on the video, but I'll put on the video at the end so that those who don't know me can look at me. The 30 minutes, I plan to use it differently. I don't want to put you in a lecture room. I just want to say a few words, and then we really have a discussion for the remaining time out of the 30 minutes. I was contacted by my friend, Charter President, Dr. Rutaji, yesterday, and there is a topic he also had, and I said we shall discuss at a future date. But the topic we agreed upon that we discussed today is skills for economic competitiveness, or skills for national economic competitiveness. Now, we are not going to really talk a lot about the academic jargon, but want to look at like the real basics. I want to start off with 2 examples of 2 questions, and I think you'll give me answers at the end of this presentation. We have some areas or some programs within Uganda where our national government has like put its priorities, like has made them priorities. I won't use many programs. Let me just use one example of Emyoga. You all know about Emyoga program that has been taken to parish level under the parish development model. I would like you to look at the skills or what we require our local leaders to have at LC1, LC2, up to LC5. The kind of skills they have, including our councillors. One time I met some councillors at the Kampala Capital State Authority, and some of them also they require interpreters. Now, if you are taking these development funds and you're handing over these people, I won't tell you about the level of qualifications at parish level for what we demand from our leaders at that level. How do you ensure that these funds are well utilized across the country, in all parishes across the country? If you are looking at some basic skills, maybe some of these people who are investing at this man at parish level should have. Do you think some of these people even have knowledge of like how to write a business plan? Do they have a knowledge about an investment plan? And then how do you ensure accountability at these levels? Of course, we have a mixture of people at parishes. Some of them are educated, others are not. But we want to look at it across board because these are funds being sent to all parts of the country. So that's one thing I would like you to think about. And if you have that as a priority area and want people to work at parish level, what kind of skills have you given them to ensure that they implement those programs and you're able to have some bit of competitiveness within our communities? The other thing I would like you to reflect on is, I'll give you 2 examples. China is a country in the past that had one of the worst human rights records. And but now the situation has improved in the past maybe 10 or so years. But I want you to look back and see why most of the Western world, including North America, European Union, took the investment to China, the country that had one of the worst human rights records. Why did some of the companies in the Western world, North America, take their companies to India? When we're talking about business process outsourcing, I want you to think about that as we really talk about this issue. Now, I just want to give you some statistics from 2019 about Uganda. In Uganda, in 2019, we had 1 engineer for every 30,000 population. So for every 30,000 people in Uganda, among them we had 1 engineer. Now, for every 25,725 in 2019, when you had a population of 25,725, we had 1 medical doctor. For every 11,000 people in Uganda, we had 1 nurse. Now, the recommended ratio, in these 3 areas, I don't have to go to so many areas, is 1 to 1,000. Now, if you all know that Cuba is one of the countries that has well-trained doctors and nurses, and in large quantities. And Cuba didn't have a good human rights record either, but no country in the world has ever rejected doctors and nurses from Cuba. They're all over the world working. So when you look at Uganda, and we are looking at, now let's look at the areas we are re-emphasizing in the country as areas of priority when it comes to economic development and the required skills. Let's look at some of these areas who have been like talking about a lot. Let's talk about the automotive industry. Uganda is now promoting Kira Motors, and we really want to manufacture buses, sell them in Uganda, sell them in East Africa, sell them beyond even East Africa. If you look at companies like Tesla in the US that has its base also in China, they are now using smart manufacturing. And I think you all know what smart manufacturing is all about. So if somebody is using smart manufacturing, and for us, we are doing manufacturing the traditional way, how competitive shall we be with our product if we want to sell it beyond Ugandan borders? Those who are watching like Olympics and games and so on, you've seen China, restaurants now are being manned by robots because of COVID. They don't want people to get in touch with COVID. So you have smart hospitality services, but in Uganda, we are still using only human beings to serve people, even in the 5-star hotels. So if we are talking about being competitive in the area of agriculture, if you go to countries like Netherlands, Switzerland, and others, they are now involved in smart agriculture. How many of our farmers, including commercial farmers, are really having the skills for them to really engage in smart agriculture? So I want us to think through this because, like I said, I would like us to have a discussion. And one of the things I think we need to look at as a country is mapping skills supply and demand. So when you talk to some people, they will tell you, in Uganda, as much as we don't have enough engineers, those we have are not employed. But then I asked you a question at the very beginning. Why do you think companies in North America, Europe, and other places, the Western world, moved their industries to China? China did not focus on just engineers that they needed for their local economy. They focused on producing more engineers than are required. And because they were available, some of these world economies moved their industries there, and they are still there. They can't move them out of China because they have well-qualified engineers that are competitive in terms of salaries. So when we are looking at mapping skills, supply, and demand, do you first say, well, since we have medical doctors that are not employed, we don't have to produce more medical doctors, almost move to the ratio of 1 to 1,000 for every population? That's something we have to think about. Because at times, if you are attracting economic activities in the country, they are coming because there is excess supply. So that now the demand comes in. So we have to look at this issue of managing skills, supply, and demand. But of course, for us to manage that, at times we have to look at strategies to raise skills, supply, and also demand. So where you have a shortfall of skills, you have to raise the supply. Where you have a shortfall of demand, you have to have strategies for raising the demand. And but again, in Uganda, when we're talking about skills supply, what kind or quality of skills are we supplying? If we say we are going to be in the automotive industry, what kind of skills? You cannot just train electrical engineers. You have to look at all the kind of skills that you need for you to have a vibrant automotive industry. If you want to have a space industry, like we say, some people are talking about who have to go to space. What kind of skills do we have? And what of skills can we have in the market and then create a demand for them? If you're talking about smart agriculture, what kind of skills should we have? So, and of course, when you have demand, people are employed, how do you create the demand? Now, of course, but before I talk about how to create the demand, some of you have been to Dubai Expo, and you realize that some countries have really promoted have advertised their countries because they have done really smart marketing. I won't say what is happening with Uganda, but all of us have been there. We've seen Kenya, we've seen Rwanda, we've seen Tanzania, all these countries, so you can judge for yourselves. But one of the things when you're looking at strategies to raise skills supply and demand, one of the things we look at is taking a sector-based approach. You look at like the health sector, you look at the skills that are needed, and you look at how to create the demand in that sector. If you're talking about the manufacturing sector, we look at the skills that are needed, and we produce, we get that supply for the skills, and of course we create the demand. You all know what happened with the oil and gas sector when we said we had discovered oil. Most people went out there and studied MBAs in oil and gas. Many universities have started those programs, even a bachelor's in oil and gas management. And later on, people that actually they had no jobs, and like they had wasted their funds on training. And when the government, and I think it was the National Planning Authority, did a study, they actually found out that the skills that were needed were not those that were being offered in our institution. And now if you look at most of the oil and gas programs, they have kind of died, you know. So at times we have to take a sector approach, best approach, and then really do a thorough analysis and identify what skills we need in the market. We also have to identify appropriate levers to drive sectoral and local skills development. Because if you don't identify these appropriate levers to drive sectoral and local skills development, then you won't do much. Like you cannot wake up today. I remember when I was at Makerere University as a student, we were always told, even when I was a member of Senate from 2000, we were being told medical school cannot admit more than 45 students. And they were serious at that. Because you cannot wake up and say, produce 500 medical doctors or enroll 500 medical doctors in first year. So we have to ensure that you also have appropriate facility, because it's not one, it's one thing say we have doctors or we have engineers. It's another thing to ensure that they meet international standard. People to say, yes, you have good doctors like the ones that come from Cuba. So in some of these areas that we consider areas where we have to produce more professionals, like the government talks about promoting science and technology. We are promoting science in primary and secondary schools. But when we move to the higher levels, like of universities, of tertiary institutions, maybe the government must come in and support these institutions with appropriate facilities, even maybe supplement salaries for us to have the right people trained with the right skills. So there's no way like in Uganda, you can have public, let's say universities, produce all the medical doctors we need, all the nurses we need, produce all the engineers we need for us to be economically competitive as a country, for us to attract huge investments from the developed world, for people to come and set up their bases here, manufacture from here, assemble from here, and so on. So that is also very, very important. But also the issue of defining the functional labor market. When we talk about the labor market, it is the availability of employment and labor in terms of supply and demand. So it is important that we look at the functional labor markets. So if a market is not functional, it is useless for you to even produce skills in that kind of sector. Like today in Uganda, we are talking about nuclear science, but if you had 10,000 nuclear scientists, I don't think they would be employed. So we have to ensure that we have a functional labor market or labor markets, and then our priority areas, and then we produce sufficient skills in those areas. Now, there are areas where we think we should produce more of the professionals than other areas. Because if we have excess engineers, excess doctors, excess nurses, these people will end up getting employed because we create the demand. But if we are required to produce 10,000 historians and we produce 100,000, most likely the demand won't be created to ensure that they are economically engaged and contribute to economic competitiveness. So we have to look at areas where we can have excess supply so that we raise the demand but there are areas where you produce excess supply and you never raise the demand. So we also have to look at the importance of local leverage and flexibility, but most importantly, the issue of data availability. You know, when you're going to do any planning, you need data. And in most cases, you find that what we do at times is not informed by data. And as a country at times, some of the strategies or key documents that we produce at times, they don't include almost all the key stakeholders. I've seen some good, very, very good strategies. I'll tell you one of them, like in my area. There's a very, very good strategy, for example, which we call the Fourth Industrial Revolution Strategy, or Industry 4.0 plus, where we require certain skills. But then you find in all our universities, we don't have a single program in those skills. If you're looking at areas like artificial intelligence, data science, embedded systems, we don't have these programs. So where are these programs come from if you are looking for high number in these areas? So what I'm trying to say is that as a country we are going to be economically competitive, planning is critical, planning is key. And for us to plan, we need data. And we have also to look at the issue of stakeholders. Which stakeholders should be involved and at what stage? If we already have a surplus of skills and want to create demand, what kind of stakeholders do we need to be involved? If we are at the stage of, if we have a shortage of skills supply, what kind of stakeholders should we involve? So when we are talking about skills for national economic competitiveness, it's not something we do without thorough planning. And this planning, I'm glad that we have a national planning authority, and even in most of our departments, our institutions have planning departments. But to what extent do we really engage in integrated planning? To what extent do you find a university like Mackay University, which is a public university, sitting down with a government ministry or a government agency to plan for the people to have on programs, how to train them, you know, and like have a plan for 5 years. I say, Makerere, you have a College of Engineering, Art and Design. When do they sit with the government to discuss how many engineers train, the facilities are available on ground, whether government is willing to provide more additional support to ensure we have quality engineers? When do we sit down and have this plan and you put it down? When you go for admissions, you say, this year we are admitting so many. Next year our plan is to admit so many. And the government is involved and the university is involved. If you talk about Mbara University, for example, where we have medicine, when does Mbara University of Science and Technology sit down with government to plan the training of medical doctors, the ones we used to call community medical doctors? And you plan and say, this is what is required. These are the numbers we have to have this year, next year, and so on. And everybody knows that, you know, this is the plan. I'm not saying this is not happening, but I'm saying in all these sectors, if you are going to cause national economic competitiveness and we are looking at skills, then we really have to plan together. I don't want to say a lot. Like I said, I really want to enjoy the 30 minutes and have a discussion with you. So let me just stop there and really get your feedback or get your questions, and then we can use the remaining part of the 30 minutes effectively. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Onashas Wariamureba, for igniting our thoughts in a very critical area. And indeed, we believe that the need to align the skill set that we have as a nation to the economic competitiveness there is in Uganda is really ripe and should be addressed. Friends on call, allow me welcome the Emerging Rotary President of the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak, PE Edward Mugerwa. You are welcome to moderate our interaction session this morning. PE, Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, our guest speaker this morning, Professor Balia. You really touch a topic that is personally dear to me, because one of the questions is, as a nation, what is our competitive advantage? And what sort of skills do we need to really, capitalize on that so that we can develop? You mentioned some of the industries that we are pursuing, the automotive industry, what we are doing there, what we are doing in agriculture, and there are gaps. You mentioned all those gaps. And I think the discussion, members, is open. Let's reflect on the presentation so far that Professor has given to us. If you have any question, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat box. Yes, I have a few hands up. Rotarian Mark, please take the floor, followed by and Richard.
Super. Thank you so much, Edward, and thank you so much, Prof. Just a follow-up question to what Edward has said. Our grandfather in economics, Adam Smith, in his book of The Wealth of Nations, he, I think, quoted that Congo would have been the richest nation with the minerals and this and that. So what should be Uganda's absolute advantage in this scenario? Because China has resorted to industrialization, as well as many of the countries down in Asia. Dubai and the Arab world have resorted to tourism, because not everyone will go into industrialization. Quote me if I'm wrong, but Uganda tried that same system and we opened thousands of industries and many of them are shutting down. So whereas we are trying to attract the smart technology of production, and of which is a reality, and of course, AI is going to be the next gen, as well as IT and data analysis. In that regard, what should Uganda's absolute advantage be in such a scenario, as well as what should our comparative advantage be? Thank you so much. I hope I was clear enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I have taken note of your questions. Let's hear from Henry and Richard, then we'll have Prof respond to those. Yes, Henry, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Henry Tebukera from the Rotary Club of Kampala City. I want to thank Professor Baria for that elaborate presentation. And I think, Prof, you have tickled us in many ways. And I want to agree with you that really, as a country, we need to develop the next generation skills going forward. So I also like your insight about the need to develop global skills. The last time I heard Nigeria presenting about their skills, they said globally, when you go to any oil field, if you find 10 internationals in every oil field or oil industry, they want 2 of them to be Nigerians, wherever they are. And then, of course, I also like your interaction on the availability of all of these plans for Uganda around the skills. I've interacted a lot with plans from National Planning Authority. They have done the mapping of the skills supply, the skills demand, the gaps, where are the next skills. The key question would be, why are we seem to be aware of the problem. We seem to be aware of where focus needs to be put. We need to be aware that we need to train the following skills, but why are these things not coming through? Where is the problem? Why do we continue to produce more of what we don't need and less of what we need? So my question is, what is not happening to actually make this work going forward? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rotarian Henry, for those questions and comments. Rotarian Richard, could you take the floor? Then I think we shall allow the prof to respond.
Thank you very much, PE, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Prof. Barrier, for a very good presentation. Mine is really about what you have already talked about, but I would really seek your professional opinion. I know that where you stand, a bit of interaction, I hope I'm being heard. So you sit at a point where you have one leg into education, private university education. So what you talk about planning, you perhaps are one of the big people to talk about it. But on the other side, you also stand in a position where you have the other leg in innovation. So I want to understand, today we see private universities recruiting as many people as can be available. And there's been a lot of discussion around whether these people qualify for university education in terms of grades and what kind of people they become when they finally qualify. There's a quality problem in there. But when you talk of planning, is it that planning has since ceased? Have we stopped thinking of who can really study any course in this country, that for as long as someone has money and they can pay for it, then anyone can study anything? And that takes me to the other question of what you talked about. We seem to be in a country where there's a lot of need for expertise, but and yet we seem like as if we are saturated at the same time. Case in point is Uganda has a need for doctors that is so huge, because currently one doctor serves over 25,000 Ugandans. But like you said, you find doctors who are unemployed, even when private universities are now churning out as over 500 doctors per year. So how can we have the planning on one side, link up with the possible innovations and creatives, coming up with new ways of providing care, new ways of providing service, so that we go around this problem? Thank you very much. Sorry for the mouthful.
And thank you very much, Richard, for your comments and questions. Prof, could you please respond to those before we get another one?
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. There were many questions. If I don't answer any one of them, you can remind me which one I've not answered. But I'll start from the very first one. We are saying, what is our competitive advantage as a nation? And I had expected you to tell me what it is. Because you see, if we are Ugandans, and we should all, at least the majority of us who are like educated, we should know where our competitiveness is. Like, it should be clear, like the way you go through people's offices and see the vision, mission, and so on. But let me start from another angle. When you talk to people, they tell you in Uganda, we speak good English because they're from a British colony. They will tell you that also the time zone is good for us. Now, I talked about mapping skills, supply, and demand. If you're looking at this area, you're looking for our competitiveness, competitive advantage. You know, like you do it through like a serious study or a survey. Let me give you an example. Recently, about a year and a half ago, UK, when it left the European Union, they had a shortage of nurses. And they opened up to the Commonwealth to let people who are nurses go to UK. And countries like Kenya already have agreements they have signed. I don't know whether they have signed one in Uganda. I don't know whether we have, at times you have to look at what is current and you take advantage, even if you didn't plan for it. I don't know whether in Uganda we have a Marshall Plan to produce nurses, or we have remained like doing what we've been doing. Not just train nurses, but also raise the quality of the nurses. Like to what level? Some of you who are in these nursing institutions, or if you're in charge of those sectors, you can tell us whether you have taken advantage of that. Now, again, everybody says you need something of national pride. Like I asked you a question, Kira EV is a very, very good project. It started almost at Makerere University as VC. But when you look at the other countries that have gone into the same area, can our products produced here compete? So when you know whether you can compete or not, then you see where your competitive advantage. Is it to produce spare parts for other vehicles? You know. So, but I think there are areas where we can be very, very competitive. If you look at agriculture, if we really improved on the quality of what we produce, and also look at the market, like we produce people with the skills to help us to ensure that the products are of top quality. Like anybody will say, I want Ugandan tomatoes. I want Ugandan this. So, and then we go ahead and look for now the demand now in terms of their products, because here we're talking about skills, but when we have these skills and we produce something, we must market the product. So like we create real markets for our product. You find that almost all hotels in, let's say in Dubai, where there is a lot of spirit industry, they are getting their ketchup, whatever products from Uganda, even some of them fresh. Then we can actually say that's our competitive advantage, because Uganda is not a desert. We have good soils, we have good climate. So we need to have to decide on, when you talk about skills, when we have these skills in a given sector, that's why I talked about a sector approach to skills supply and demand. But when you have these skills, because of course the ultimate aim is to have the final product. You remember Uganda used to be an education hub, and almost everybody would come to Uganda to study. Is it still the case today? If it is not, what has gone wrong? Is that something you can focus on again and ensure that we produce the right skills to ensure that in every institution in this country, whether it's a primary school, a secondary school, a university, almost from across Africa and beyond, people are coming to Uganda because of the skills we have in our institution in terms of the instructors or lecturers, or professors, and then we have that supply and then we create the demand. So for me, Uganda can be competitive, but we have to make our choices, right? Of course, for example, everybody should go, every country should aim at going to the moon. But when you look at the level of development, where we are still a low middle income country and want to go to middle income, what are those things we need to do to take us there? Because we are looking at national economic competitiveness. What are those things? Is it us going to the moon at this moment, or something can postpone maybe for the next 10 or 15 years? So to me, really, I will answer you back in form of those questions. Now, what kind of skills do we need? Again, it goes back to what I've said. If we pick out these areas and we call priority areas, and then we should stick to them and produce the skills that we need for those sectors. If we say that we are going to ensure that we engage in commercial agriculture, and it's not just for the local consumption, but we are going to export, let us have the right skills. We may not be able to do smart agriculture like the way they are doing elsewhere, but at times you have to move towards that. Because if you don't, in some cases, you may find that what you're producing does not meet the minimum standards. So we have to ensure that international standards are met. Now, say Congo would have been the richest nation because of minerals, but it is not. So the other area, you know, at times when you want to invest a lot of your money, you want high return on investment. If you look at the youngest billionaires, the youngest millionaires in terms of dollars across the world, and you assess, they are coming from certain areas. And it's mainly science, technology, and innovation, or science and technology. That's why you see them. If you look at the people whose wealth has multiplied among the billionaires, they are all in high-tech industries. Now, is it possible for us also to look at that market can we be able to solve a national, regional, continental, or even a global challenge? I've seen people here in Uganda, at times I do studies here locally, you find the people of Uber, they call, when people call them, they pick. Then when people say, okay, when they reach the destination, like, where am I taking you? They say, can I switch off this meter? Because this Uber, I cannot make money out of it, it's very expensive. But can we also have our local apps here and ensure that actually they are working? So instead of taking 25%, Uber taking 25%, maybe Uganda takes only 10% and people are able to work and move, because most of these passengers, they are getting them from within the country. So what I'm saying is we need to do a thorough analysis to be able to look at our competitive areas, but they are there because the government has advised us, because at times we follow what the government is saying, and these areas are there. So we have to say, do we have the right skill in these areas? I've given you a few examples, but we have several others. We can look at in the areas the government has made priority. How do we continue to produce more of what we don't need? Now, we also have to know that, for example, when it comes to private institutions, they are looking at survival, and the survival is in the form of fees. That's why it is sad but true. You can find a university recruiting 500 medical students, one university. And when it comes to around third year or fourth year, they start saying, how are you going to get hospitals and so on? So they start saying, you have low grades, you can't continue, maybe go to another institution and so on. So this brings in the issue of the professional associations. To what extent do they come in these areas like engineering, medicine, and so on, to really regulate? I know they do, but also that some institutions had this number, like 500 students in first year, second year in a medical school. So how did that one happen? That one, I'll leave it as a topic for another day. So we need to ensure that why do we produce more of what we don't need? So as a country, maybe it's about creating awareness to ensure that we don't train so many. But if a university is private and is saying, I need money from training, let's say, people in which you can pick any program where you think we already have high demand, and the people are willing to take it, they'll proceed and do it. But then that's a problem. You see, that's why I said we need to have integrated planning. Like somebody one time asked me that we need a medical school in every part of this country because training medical doctors is part of service delivery, and I agree. But there are certain other programs that don't have to be in every university, let's say public university, but they are there. So you find every university having almost every program. Should we continue that way? Of course, at times we duplicate the resources. We could have concentrated them on one institution and trained the right numbers, the right skills. We spread these professionals across, yet we should not. Now, the other one is nobody can new ways, okay, of service. Let me give you an example. When you go to South African hospitals, even today, after COVID ended, has kind of been controlled. Even before COVID, you will find Ugandan doctors flying to South Africa every weekend to provide services, to do operations and so on. Now, in South Africa, and then you see also Ugandans also flying South Africa, the doctors are flying South Africa to be operated on, but they're being operated on by Ugandans who are living in Uganda and going to South Africa. So in some instances, if we are trying to say why our doctors are not employed, have we worked with these private entities to see how best they can scale up their facility, maybe with government subsidy, to ensure that some of these major procedures are done here in Uganda? So these are some of the things we need to think about, because you see, it's like in the area of innovation, we are looking at science and technology. Here in Uganda, we don't have venture capital firms that are serious. But in the US and other places, anybody who has an innovation and it's a promising innovation, you will get venture capital. So we don't have. So it means that here locally in Uganda, the government must put in a lot of money to ensure some of these startups take off, but also they must have the right guidance, the right documents, like the right business plans, the right mentorship. first of all, the money must be provided. Now, I know that most funds were provided to projects of people across the country in these other government programs, but immediately the money in 3 to 5 months, the money is spent, the project stops. That's not the kind of projects we want to support. We want well thought out projects that can be supported and become billion-dollar company. Again, that requires planning, integrated planning with all key stakeholders, and see how best you can do that. I thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for those for the elaborate responses that you've given. Mr. President, we seem to be really hard up on time. I don't know how many more minutes you can give us.
Yeah, I'm afraid we are really hard pressed for time. I'll beg the indulgence of colleagues and comrades on call if you could kindly allow us strictly 10 minutes to allow us take only 2 more burning questions and then move to the end of the fellowship. But also, Professor, if you have only 10 minutes after the close of fellowship, you could step out and respond to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one hand up. Rotarian Mercy, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you, President, and thank you, Professor. My question relates to the civil service of the future that requires a reskilling in terms of the fact that you find many civil servants have obsolete skills, especially when you look at the stenographers, the skills that were needed before the ICT age. What is your take on the reskilling programs, especially the challenge that is before the human resource practitioners or the public or civil service people, but also the fact that we also need reskilling strategies in our institutions since the COVID-19 pandemic affected many business processes. People are coming back to open bars, the night economy, opening their offices as well, and businesses. And there's new skills, there's new technologies. What is your take on that, especially when everything now requires e-processes and e-procurements and e-governance? How do we enable the mindset change, especially in this new normal? We see that the human resource practitioners and the influencers and decision makers must do something intentional. And also, maybe lastly, I also foresee or do a predictive analysis of the fact that in the future, we are likely not to have a requirement, especially when we are recruiting, over the specialized skills, because as long as anyone has basic education, let's say degree in education, they can be trained on job in communication, in ICT. As long as somebody has any basic degree or diploma or whatever is required, they can do lab tests, they can do things. So I think we may also need to look at the recruitment strategy. Do we still need specialized skills? Because human beings can be taught to do things as long as they can speak English, as long as they can understand and read. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, Rotary Mercy, for those wonderful comments and as well as questions. Let's get one more question, then we will have our speaker respond. Rotarian Dr. Kasenene, your hand was up. Let's receive your question or comment.
Thank you very much. I would like to join my colleagues to thank Professor for his exposition. Thank you very much, Professor. I am called the Associate Professor, Dr. Kasenede. My question is, Professor, there's a saying that Uganda is an agricultural country, but how enough has the government of Uganda helped farmers so that they excel in the farming? For example, in Uganda, everywhere you move, there are so many rivers, there are so many streams, there's water, Why has the government come in to maximize irrigation process so that in dry areas farmers can irrigate their farms? Thank you very much, Professor.
May I?
Thank you, Professor. You can go ahead and respond to the...
Okay. Thank you very much. You know, I will start with the last question. We know that Uganda, our economy is private sector driven, so the government is supposed to be an enabler. So enabling people, enabling our farmers to do what they are supposed to do. And when you're enabling, you have limits. But you know, in the past, we used to have extension staff, if you remember them, veterinary doctors, agriculturists, who are always working with the community to enable them to do what they are supposed to do. But these days, I don't think many of them are out there. You know, we used to have those. And the other thing, like, you know, if you're talking about irrigation, you're talking about maybe tractors and so on, people used to access those things in the past. But these days, wherever these tractors are, I don't think they can easily be accessed or they are equitably distributed where people need them most. So again, this goes to the strategy of government. If you're going to enable farm, and not every farmer can be a commercial farmer. So maybe they need to focus on a certain section of farmers in a given locality as commercial farmers, and they're able to ensure their products of high standards and they can be exported. Because you have to look at the whole value chain. If somebody produces tomatoes in Kasese and they're good tomatoes, by the time they reach Kampala, they are rotten, then that farmer will not produce more. So I think the issue of looking at the whole value chain and ensuring that whatever is produced in any part of this country is of quality and it reaches where it's supposed to reach when it's still of quality, it's for export, to go for export. So to me, what you are saying, yes, and it's an issue we need to look into. The government's doing something, but we think should do more. Let me move to the next one. The one of civil service of the future, where we need retooling, reskilling. Yes, this is necessary. But you see, as you are raising it, if you are looking at public service, it begins from either the Public Service Commission or Ministry of Public Service. Now, because now we have various institutions across the country, if you want to reskill these people, it is more strategic not to bring them to the Public Service College in Jinja or any institution in Kampala, but work with institutions across the country, ensure they have the right facilities in place. You can even have the skilling program designed with these institutions. And then if it requires accreditation, you have it accredited. And these institutions participate in skilling people in those communities. For example, maybe in each region, you can pick like 5 institutions you can work with so that people don't have to move long distances. And of course, you can supplement that one with ICT, where we are having now e-learning or open distance and learning education. Like somebody can learn from their phone. Like now we are having this discussion. We are all using our phone. You know, we can share materials, we can work, you know, and then you can even have video conferencing and have, you know, these live discussions. So that is possible. You can use a mixture or blended kind of learning. So the strategies, they have to start from government, either a government institution like the Public Service College in Jinja or the Ministry of Public Service, coming up with a strategy and working with the key stakeholders. That's what I was talking about, the issue of which stakeholders should be involved when you are going to engage in some of these issues. You're talking about buzz, issues of mindset change, you know? And of course, in this COVID era, people of borders, really they got some business because they were supplying goods, whatever, to people's homes and so on. But you were saying government needs to do something in this, and I agree. And one of the things I want to remind you, if some of you have read books like Good to Great, Build to Last, but even we have examples here. You know, in the past, people used to have shops where somebody is selling a single product. You go there, you are buying just one product. And then you move to another place to buy another product. If you look at in the Western world, shops that never moved on to become like supermarket. They closed the shop, and you can find a good number of examples in Good to Great. That now we have seen that those that have moved beyond just a single supermarket like Amazon, to be just on the internet, sell anything that you want. They are actually doubling their profit each year. So again, the supermarkets in some instances are dying out. People can remain in the comfort of their homes and buy online. So if you're a supermarket and you don't have an online shop, because like when we travel, somebody tells if you want to buy more goods, you can go to our website and buy. Or if you want to buy something, say, no, we shall send it to you. Just give us your address and so on. So it is important that people keep moving. Like you don't remain in one place. You remain that you become dynamic. I recently read a study, and it was done by a very, very important firm as I wind up.
Prof, we have a minute to conclude.
Yes, 1 minute. It said that companies, big companies, that won't integrate artificial intelligence and Internet of Things into their operations, if they don't adopt that 100%, in the next 10 years, they want to be competitive. Others will go extinct. But like we are saying, that people are adopting electric vehicles in Africa, it's a different story. It may take us another 50 years when we are still using fuel. So we shall be okay. But if you are focusing on using fuel in Europe or America, it may not be possible in the next 10 years. So in a way, we have to adapt. That's what I can say as I conclude. So government has to be intentional, and being intentional requires the government to have the right people in the right positions, so that things are able to move. In most cases, you cannot have, for example, a permanent secretary who's not a medical doctor in charge of health services. You cannot have a minister who's a medical doctor in charge of health. And the same applies to some of the other critical sectors, because you must be the one to lead, to provide leadership. And you cannot oversee what you don't know. You cannot supervise what you don't know. So in some of these instances, government has to rethink its strategy. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for those wonderful responses. I think one of the topics, Mr. President, we need to invite Prof back is the topic on the fourth industrial revolution. There are a couple of pointers that have come through this particular topic today. Mr. President, I would like to hand over you right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, PE Edward Mugerwa, for ably guiding us through our interaction session. And thank you very much, Professor Vanashas Vanamreva. Just to let you know, it is only in Rotary where you have a president who is not a political analyst. But Professor, I see a lot of very important and critical questions and comments in the chat section, ranging from areas of our methods of teaching, where you see people cram to pass, as opposed to experimental methods of teaching, ranging to aspects of data, which is very critical in planning, fragmentation of data, as opposed to data being integrated to inform planning, among many other interesting questions and comments in the chat section. I will request you, PE, to quickly go through the chat section, summarize these questions and comments. And Professor, I will request that you stay put for hardly 10 minutes so that you can be able to receive and respond to these very critical comments and questions that need to be responded to. Friends, allow me invite our very own Rotarian Faith Tushabe to kindly move a befitting vote of thanks to Professor here for really giving us quite an insightful message that we are happy to receive this morning. Rotarian Faith, over to you.
Thank you, President. I hope I am loud and clear.
You are very audible. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much. Good morning, fellow Rotarians, Rotarafters, and our guests on call this morning. Allow me, on your behalf, to thank our guest speaker today, Professor Venasius Bariamureva. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning for giving us an insightful and a very mind-triggering presentation, I must say. Very many key takeaways to have from this presentation. Allow me to present to you a certificate of appreciation and recognition for sharing your knowledge and experience during the Skills for National Economic Competitiveness in the case of our country, Uganda. I know that this will be presented in the earliest available opportunity, to you physically, but accept our certificate of appreciation virtually today. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Over to you, President.
Thank you very much, Rotarian Faith. Friends, allow me invite you, our Sergeant at Arms, Rotarian Stephen Wakasenza, to quickly give us a summary of our statistics for today.
Thank you, President. We need to also inform the Prof that there is a hug therapy given by the presenter of that certificate. Without any further ado, President, the statistics are as follows. We had 165 participants, 50 Rotary clubs, 4 Rotaract clubs, and 2 guests. I will go through the list quickly. Rotary clubs present: Kampala, Kibuli, Natete, Weyogere Nambole, Kampala South, Ntinda, Kampala Morning Stars, Bukoto, Sunrise, Munyonyo, Kampala Alibadi, Kiwatule, Nakasero, Luboa, Makindye, Namasuba, Nakasero Central, Chanja Metro, Ntinda Metropolitan, Bulindo, Kampala Metropolitan, Mokono, E-Club of Uganda Global, Provisional, RC, Upper Kololo, Muyenga, Kampala City, Kigo, Sonde, Kasanga, Kayunga, Gaza, Kololo, Saturday Evening Jazz, Meridian Garden, Nairobi North, Kampala Springs, Kablasoke, Gombe, Woblenzi, Makinde, Bulova, Rubaga Lakeview, Kiwenda Bugiri, Nsanji, and Maisha. If I haven't named your Rotary Club, please jot the name in the chat group. The club of the day was Sunrise on account of numbers. The Rotary clubs present were Mukono, Utamu, Lake Victoria, Mulago School of Nursing, and Midwifery. Guests present were Miss Fiona Sima and Lynn. Lynn gave only one name. I submit, Chair. President.
Thank you very much, Sergeant at Arms. And as our President nominee, Rotarian Dorothy Chand, prepares to give us a final toast, allow me once again appreciate each and every single one of you for always being with us every Thursday morning, and please continue being with us. But in a special way, we appreciate and recognize all our district officials and district leaders. We recognize our international partners from District 914, with whom we trade in the same currency. But I want to really appreciate you, First District Governor Francis Xavier Sentam Sarong. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much, DGN Francisco Semwanga, for being with us. Thank you very much, DES Jen Kabugo, for being with us. POP Don and POP Kate, thank you very much for always loving and being with Deborah. But in a very special way, I want to recognize and appreciate you, our district Rotary representative elect Sarah Owembabazi. Thank you very much for always being with us. And to you, the PAGs, Changemaker AGs, and my comrades, Changemaker presidents, it is always a great honor, privilege, and joy to be with you every Thursday morning. How I wish I can single out everybody. I would love to say that I appreciate, and we appreciate, we as Deborah, each and every single one of you. PN, kindly give us the final toast as we bring this fellowship to a close.
Thank you, President. Good morning, Rotarians and friends, for the wonderful presentation we have had this morning on innovation and technology. Let's stand up and toast to Rotary International.
Rotary the world over. Thank you very much, friends.
Rotary is over.
Rotary is not over. We are officially opening Chimeza. And now, PE, I request that you quickly summarize the critical comments and questions that were really channeled through our chat section, align them to the professor. Professor, are you still on call? Professor, are you still with us?
I think Professor has left. I don't see him. Oh, he's still on call. I can see he's still on call.
Yes, I am. Sorry, I am.
Wonderful. Professor, we kindly beg that you accord us only 10 minutes of your precious time.
I will.
Thank you. So very quickly, PE, I turn this Chimeza to you, but voice all the questions and comments that were channeled in our chat section. Thank
Yes,
you,
indeed, the chat section was really, very busy with a lot of comments and questions. I will start off with the one from Rotarian Jen Kabugo. Essentially, it's about data. And she's wondering how as a country, we can start moving towards an integrated database that's available to all people. Now, of course, this is in reference with all sets of data. She talked of national planning data. She talked of data from the private sector. And she mentioned that the challenge we have now is that all this data is actually fragmented and is not integrated. That is the first question. Then there is another one that came from Rotarian Robert Walakira. She did mention that we've had people out of the classroom for close to 2 years. The National Planning Authority suggests that Uganda will be a middle-income country soon. However, he's wondering whether this is achievable, considering what we have been going through in the recent almost 2 years. Then Rotarian May Vaji has looked at other aspects of what promotes a country's competitiveness. One of those is taxation, other than labor and the skills of its people. Taxation has to be put into consideration as well. Then she mentioned the concerns around our teaching methods. Professor, this is very close to your heart. And she says that the country, we cram to pass exams. We need to change that so that we have what she called to learn by experimental, I would think, practice. This is what would fundamentally change the way we see things. I think that's a comment, but a question at the same time. We also got a question from Ryan Hans Nyanzi, and he's wondering where universities do their needs analysis. How do they do the needs analysis before they introduce new courses? Then we also have another one from Ryan Chris Matete. Appreciate you very much. And then she is wondering whether AI will lead to a similar rush. Now, the rush she's talking about is the rush for oil and gas, the discovery of oil and gas, and when people rush to get degrees in that particular sector, or then they come back and there are no jobs. So he wants you to know your take on that. Then Lieutenant Kate Barasa, what are the barriers that inhibit women's equal participation and benefit from the labor market opportunities, and what should be done to address those needs, those barriers? Yes, Prof, that's what I've managed to pick from the chat section. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would start from the last one we just mentioned, the barriers to local market opportunities and what should be done to address that. I think number one is mindset change. You will realize that most people still import, for example, beds from Turkey and other places. But if you go around Kampala and even up country, we have carpenters who are making very, very, very good beds. But these people who are buying from abroad are really making these people not benefit from their funds. So we take money out, yet we have certain things we can buy here locally. And I think it's about nationalism, it's about mindset change. But the other one is, of course, also to look at the quality of our products. I mean, not every product we produce is quality. You've seen Kenya reject our maize and so on. So we have also to look at part of the local market is the regional market, because for us, we are under the East African community. And if you look at the European Union, they look at the whole market as a local market because they are selling within the EU. So even as we're able to sell within across the East African community, but of course at times the legal framework is not that strong. A country today can say we are closing borders and the borders are closed. But you can't do that in the EU because the EU is very strong. You can't do it. You have penalties here and there. So I think we need to also improve on the legal framework, like the treaty for the East African community, but also do mindset change on our own people. I mean, you'll see somebody buying juice, mango juice that is tinned, made from Dubai, from as far as Cairo. Why can't you buy the one that is made here locally? You go to markets, you'll find our local rice. People don't buy it. They want to buy one that is coming from Malaysia and other places. Yet some of our rice is really very good. So to me, it's about mindset change. If you look at all of us, where they put on our local attire, yet people here can make even nice suits, but we don't. We want to see a brand. What is this brand I'm putting on? So mindset change is important. But you go to countries like China and so on, they really promote, they really buy local products when they are available. Let me go to the first question. I say, how can we start moving towards an integrated database? Of course, this data, I mean, it can be shared. We can have it integrated, but there are people who are institutions that are supposed to own or control certain data, but can be shared. Like UBOS has data. If you go to NIRA, the National Identification Authority, it has also data on all Ugandans. That data can be shared securely. So what is important is for us to sit down, people who are in charge of data, who are supposed to ensure this data is put to good use. Because if you don't have this data used, then even the planning suffers. National Council for Education has data from all universities. UNEB has data on primary schools, secondary schools. So they have this data, but it can be shared. I remember UNEB used to give out these books and would sell a book at 2 million shillings plus of results. But when they have an open database, somebody can subscribe and access that data at any one time without having to buy a book, and the other people can also mine that data and use it appropriately. So to me, we really need this. And even when you look at immigration and so on, there is data that can be shared across government departments, across the ministries, but to be accessed by the user, people who are authorized to use that data. So this is possible, but again, we have a Data Protection Act, and the government has the role of ensuring that we get this data, we have it integrated, and we have it shared appropriately. So again, even National Planning Authority has a lot of data. The issue of middle income status, our children having been out of classroom for 2 years. It's not just only students being out of the classroom. You see, if you are looking at middle income status, one of the key indicators is the per capita income. If you look at the income of the whole country divided by the total population includes even a kid who is 6 months old, 1 month old. If you look at that figure, when shall we ever reach like $1,300 per person? So we are having a young population, we are having a dependent population. We continue not to discourage people strongly about having large families. So this is going to take us time. But for countries that have tried to ensure that they advise their people to ensure that you don't have so many children if you can't afford them, have a reasonable family size like of 3 and so on, they are going to get middle income much faster. And one of the other things that can be done is to ensure that ladies remain in school much longer. If you can have a program that focuses on keeping the girl child in school, then they will not produce at a younger age. And when they start producing, to be around the age of 25, 26 onwards, and there they won't produce so many kids. So in a way, at times, we have to have some of these intervention measures. And I think let's keep the girl child in school, because we have conservatists who say don't use contraceptives and so on. So then let's keep the girl child in school much longer. But the issue of middle income status, yes, Uganda is coming up with lots of strategies. And I think if we continue along this path, by 2030 there, 2035, we are likely to reach middle income status. Concerns around teaching methods. You see, in the past, me, I'm not very old, I'm just 52, going to 53 in May. But when I went to school, I went to a rural school. And I can assure you, this was a rural school in a place called Chitagwenda. I come from Ibanda. And we had the best teachers. You'd be told, and you know that you'll compete with somebody in Kampala and be the best student. But those teachers are long gone in these rural areas. So the issue of the teacher is critical. Maybe ICT can help us turn around things, where you can have a teacher from King's College, Gayaza, Namagunga, Kisubi, Hillside Academy, and so on. Kitende, like teach across the country, like students are able to share. Even when you look at rural areas, students don't, we are talking about them cramming, but even at times, some of them don't have what to cram. I know some schools in Kampala, they ensure that these students have these pamphlets with question and answer, and they ensure they go through them over and over again. And some of them, when they get to universities, they really fail to move on. They move from, triple A's, they end up getting past degrees or lower second. So we have to change the teaching methods. And that, of course, starts with the regulatory authorities. Like in primary schools, how do we teach students? Students are given a lot of homework to take home. Is that the best way to train them? Where people, they can't rest, they can't even go home and engage in extracurricular activities, So we need to change the teaching method. It is true. ICT has come, can help, but also the way we teach in schools. You think in every primary school now they do these lesson plans we used to hear of. How are people teaching? Are most of the teachers in primary schools professional teachers? The answer is no. Most of these people are not teachers at all. So how do you tell them about teaching methods? Have they been retooled or trained? So it's a matter of great concern. And of course, also the facilities. You may want to teach biology, but how do you teach it? You've seen classrooms after reopening that were collapsing on students, not looking like a school. Do you expect a laboratory to be there to train people now on biology or chemistry? So the issue of facility is also critical. Inputs are critical in terms of what you get out of these institutions. The issue of taxation, definitely. Taxation has to be looked into. You see, most of the money that is made outside Uganda does not end up being taxed in Uganda. If, for example, somebody has a consultancy, and this person is doing a consultancy in Mozambique or Zambia, and this person happens to have, and the consultancy, the person didn't bid. The person was asked after bidding, I say, consultant, we know you have these skills. Can you be part of our team? And then you say yes. But then you say, if this money comes to Uganda, I'm going to pay 30% income tax on this money. But if you have an account in Mauritius, you say, okay, here's my account number. That's why I will send my money. And they will send it there. You'll bring it to Uganda as an investment, or you keep it there and do other things. So Uganda loses a lot of money because the only way they can get you to pay that money here, if you apply for a consultancy and you have applied as a firm in Uganda, if a firm is serious, the other side, they will insist and say, we'll send your money to Uganda where you applied for. But other countries, they not even mind. When you provide account details, they send the money where you want it to go because of the high tax. Look at the region here, Kenya, VAT and so on. Uganda has one of those highest figures for tax in the region. So these issues have to be looked into. At times you end up losing money. You think that maybe by charging high taxes, we'll get more money. At times, no, you lose it. People try to look at easier ways. There is tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax evasion is criminal, but tax avoidance is not. And people are engaged in tax avoidance. They hire tax consultants to do that. So I think we need to look at this issue of taxation. where do universities do their needs analysis before introducing courses? This is a requirement by National Council for Education that every university should go to the community and find out where the program is viable and so on. But you know, when a program is attracting student numbers, what normally happens, universities will go out there and say, like, let me give an example, let's say Bachelor of Laws. If you look at all universities that run the Bachelor of Laws program, they have numbers, but we have also lawyers who are not employed, many of them. But if the numbers are there, people want to do law, even when somebody goes to the field to do that needs assessment study, I don't think they come up with what they have actually gotten from the field. They come up and say, yes, there is demand, we need to introduce this course, maybe you need to introduce a course to do with gender, maybe disability, and then they submit the program to National Council, and National Council credits. So for me, what is the main guide, in addition to these needs assessment studies, is to ensure that we tell the country in the area of legal studies, these are the numbers we need, and this is where we are. And since people are going to retire in the future, we say this is the plan. We should be generating maybe an average of this year. Like you do a plan for 15, 20 years. And you ensure that you control to some extent, especially when it comes to public institutions, you control these numbers. Then in private, you see how to work with them to say, please, focus in some of these areas instead of producing more of this area. Because they will tell you, if you stop us admitting numbers on those programs, we are going to close shop, because how will we generate money? Because private universities are depending on fees, tuition fees. So yes, but we do go out there in the field, we do consult stakeholders, find out what they need, but also the other thing about stakeholders, some of these people, whenever they are consulted, they say, we are busy. They'll give you 5 minutes and then they go away. And then you end up, say you consulted, but they need to give you enough time to ensure you capture all their views. People are always busy. So then will AI lead to another rush oil and gas sector, like the way we had in the oil and gas sector? I mean, I'll tell you this. When you look at where the world is headed, you look at these big companies, anybody that has real skills in AI cannot fail to get a job. You can work online for so many firms. And you see, training in AI is not easy. The inputs, the facilities you need to train in this area, you know, they are very expensive. It's not just having a computer and some training AI. There is a lot. So in a way, if you are a true graduate, you'll get jobs all over the place. You can also create jobs for yourself. So somebody who's training in AI and artificial intelligence, yes. But if you are training in this general area, like general information technology, you can come to a level where you are so many, and you find that even individuals can now make their own websites, can do simple IT things. And at the end, like in Germany, everybody knows how to work on their vehicles. Everybody knows how to fix a chair and so on. So people can reach a level where they can fix their cars and so on and so forth. So here with IT, general IT, you may not be employed. But if you go to these specialized areas like data science, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, embedded reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, definitely you'll get jobs. Because there is a shortage. If you look at the world statistics, the shortage is so high that all of us, like when you talk about nursing, you never have, if you're a trained nurse and your profession, you can never fail to get a job. You may have robots now working in people's homes, elderly homes, and so on. But the issue of the human being can never be substituted completely. We always need nurses, physical nurses. So some of these areas are okay. The last one, that was it. So I would like to thank you. If you are still there, the moderator or chairperson, that's all I was given as questions, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, for that elaborate response to the questions and comments. I do hope, fellow Rotarians, that your questions have been responded to appropriately. And thank you very much for your active participation in today's Jimeza. Over to you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edward, and thank you very much indeed, Professor Vanashas Wadamureva. Friends, I'm sure you will agree with me all that this is a very, very, very interesting and pertinent topic that we can hardly exhaust in the time that we have accorded to us It is a working day. It is early morning. We have to embark on our day-to-day activities. Professor, indeed, we will definitely reach out to you at a future date that we deem appropriate, and we can continue to engage further and deeper into these very, very interesting discussions that not only transform us as individuals, but I believe that are very critical to the transformation of our country. Friends, I thank you very much, and I pray that you will help me to unmute and give a befitting hand clap in appreciation of Professor.
President Kitakule.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Kitakule.
Wow, wonderful, Fred. You have done it again. I really deeply appreciate it. This is a wonderful day, and really, Rotary Club of Kampala Day break. You have made me very, very proud. God bless you.
Bless you too, our CP Charter President, Dr. Robert Lutaji. It's always a joy to have you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful.
It is always an honor to serve. Thank you, Dr. and Associate Professor Kasenene.
Yeah, tomorrow I am inducting some members, please, Kampala as Hotel Africana.
I will certainly accompany our AG. I'm sure he'll be with you.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Jaja Muzungu, you are saying something.
Yeah. I wanted to add my voice. Professor, I should know that I am, he's in another district and I am also from another district. I want to register the appreciation from District 9214, mainly for Professor's humility, you know, busy as he is, and but he's spared some time to stay a little longer. It's very unusual. So thank you, Professor. My name is Sam Mwanje. I am known as Jaja Mzungu. So when you come to visit again, I'll tell you how I became a Jaja Mzungu. God bless. Thank you, President.
You've also forgotten adding that you're Salongo.
That one is my daughter, Yedida Nyakato. Professor Tana Damna Wirinda Konaka. So thank you very much, Professor. And you didn't invite Professor to join Rotary. Oba is a Rotarian already.
Professor is a Rotarian from the Rotary Club of Munyonyo.
Oh, super. Really? Great.
Yes.
Okay.
He's a Rotarian from Rotary Club of Munyonyo. Professor, we can take your parting shots and we allow you to be. Okay.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm humbled, and it was an honor for me to interact with you today. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Friends, I will request that you allow us end our Chimeza at this moment.
CMP Frederick, before you end the Chimeza,
yes,
I would like to tell Jaja Mzungu amanye abalonzi be. Professor is from his district, Neta Manyinti Rotarian.
Jaja Mzungu, you need
Jaja Mzungu
here.
We can pardon Jaja Mzungu because he said when he got COVID, he got some dementia issues. He forgets easily.
Dementia.
There's no comeback from that. I think Jaja Muzungu needs to be quiet and humble.
He has also left.
Okay, thank you so much, CMP Frederick, for a great fellowship, great interactions. I think we've benefited a lot, so I want to say thank you.
You're most welcome, BES Jen. It is always a joy to have you with us every Thursday morning. Okay, friends, let's go and establish the skills we need for our economic competitiveness as Rotarians. Thank you and bye-bye.